The 10-hour drive from Denver had left a bitter taste in my mouth, a familiar mix of exhaustion and relief. I walked into my Phoenix apartment, dropped my keys in the bowl, and relished the silence. It was late, just past midnight. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was a group text from my mother, Karen. I opened it. After that scene, you pulled over a pie. Don't bother coming for Christmas. We're done. My heart didn't break. It didn't even ache. It just stopped. And then seconds later, a small red heart icon appeared next to the message. My sister Sierra had loved it. That feeling of being pushed out by your own family is one of the worst in the world. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from right now. I'd love to know who's part of this community. The old me would have been devastated. The old me would have called begging, asking why. The old me would have apologized for a scene I didn't even start. But the woman standing in her kitchen at midnight, staring at that glowing screen, wasn't the old me. The text message wasn't an attack. It was a confirmation. It was the final receipt for a transaction I'd been losing on for 28 years. The numbness didn't feel like sadness. It felt like clarity. It was cold, sharp, and perfectly still. I sat down at my small desk. I opened my laptop. The screen illuminated my face in the dark apartment. I didn't open social media to see their posts. I didn't open my texts to reread their insults. I opened my bank account. I logged in, clicked on Bill Pay, and then on Manage Automatic Payments. And there they were. 2 entries scheduled to go out in 3 days on the 1st of the month. The first one, Karen Wilson Mortgage, $1,800. The second one, Sierra Wilson Auto Loan, $750. For 3 years, those 2 payments had left my account every single month over $90,000. Money I'd saved by skipping vacations, by driving a 10-year-old car, by living in this small apartment while my sister drove a luxury SUV I was paying for. I thought about Karen's text, "We're done." I thought about Sierra's little red heart. I moved the cursor. My finger hovered over the button just for a second. I thought about all the years I'd been the responsible one. The family safety net. The one they called in a panic, but never just to talk. The responsible one is just a nicer word for the useful one. This wasn't an emotional decision. This was accounting. I clicked Cancel Payment. A little box popped up. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment? I clicked Confirm. Then I moved the cursor to Sierra's auto loan. $750 a month for a car I'd only seen on Instagram. I clicked Cancel Payment. Are you sure? I clicked Confirm. I closed the laptop. The apartment was silent again, but this time the silence felt different. It wasn't empty. It was mine. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and went to bed. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't worry about what my family would think in the morning. I knew, and I didn't care. You're probably asking yourself, why? Why would any sane person agree to pay that much money for a family that clearly doesn't respect them? Why would I co-sign for a sister who wouldn't even text me back? The answer isn't simple. It wasn't one big decision. It was 1,000 tiny ones. A slow erosion of boundaries that started so long ago, I barely noticed it happening. The mortgage started 3 years ago. I got a call from my mother, Karen. She wasn't her usual bubbly self. She was hysterical. Taylor, your father. His hours were cut. We're 2 months behind on the house. They sent a letter. Taylor, they're going to foreclose. We're going to lose the house. Her voice was thick with a panic I had never heard before. The house I grew up in? The only home they'd ever known. I'll I'll cover it, Mom, I said, my own hands shaking as I looked at my own budget. Just send me the bank information. I'll set up a payment. Oh, Taylor, thank you. You're the responsible one. You always have been. You're saving us. The responsible one. That was my role. Sierra was the charismatic one. My dad, Mark, was the stoic one. My mom was the emotional one. And I was the responsible one, the family fixer, the safety net. I sent the $1,800, and I sent it again the next month, and the next. It never stopped. Then came the SUV. That was a year later. Sierra had landed a new marketing job, something with a fancy title. But the job required her to drive to client meetings, and her old car wasn't reliable. Or more accurately, it wasn't a luxury brand. Her credit was destroyed from years of living beyond her means. My mom called again. This time her voice was low, conspiratorial, like she was letting me in on a secret. Taylor, honey, Sierra needs a little help. Just a co-signature. Her new job pays really well. She just needs a chance to build her credit back up. It's just a signature, honey. You won't have to pay a single penny, I promise. I knew deep down that it was a lie. I felt it in my bones. But I was already paying the mortgage. What was one more yes to keep the peace? Sierra never made a single payment. Not one. The $750 payment just defaulted to me, the cosigner the first of the month. This is the part no one understands unless you've lived it. People call it weakness, but it's not. It's what I call the invisible chain of the survivor. When you grow up as the family scapegoat or the responsible one, you learn that love is conditional. It isn't given freely. It has to be earned. And the only way I knew how to earn it was to be useful, to be indispensable. My payments weren't just money. They were my proof of worth. They were my way of screaming, "Look, I'm valuable. Please love me. Please see me." You become trapped in a prison that has no bars. You're held captive by a single desperate, toxic hope that if you just give one more time, if you just sacrifice a little bit more, this will be the time they finally see you. This will be the time they finally say, "Thank you, Taylor. We appreciate you." But that day never comes. You're just handing over pieces of yourself month by month until there's nothing left. You're not just paying their bills, you're funding their disrespect. And every month when that $2,550 left my account, it was just the sound of that invisible chain pulling a little bit tighter. And this Thanksgiving, I'd actually tried. I'd driven the 10 hours from Phoenix to Denver. I didn't just show up. I came with an offering. I'd spent $75 on an artisan pie from a famous bakery, a beautiful creation with a braided crust and spiced apple filling that smelled incredible. It was my way of trying to buy my seat at the table to prove I wasn't just the family ATM. The dinner was exactly what it always was. My sister Sierra talked about her amazing new marketing project. My dad Mark praised her for being a go-getter. My mom Karen kept refilling Sierra's wine glass, beaming at her. No one asked about my job. No one asked about my drive. The beautiful, expensive pie sat on the counter, untouched. Then after dinner, my 11-year-old nephew, Mason Sierra's son, ran into the kitchen. He was holding a toy truck, making vrooming noises, not looking where he was going. He accidentally tripped, slamming right into the counter. The pie didn't just fall. It smashed. It hit the floor in an explosion of spiced apples and shattered crust. There was a second of silence. And then the laughter started. It wasn't just Mason giggling. Sierra covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. My dad let out a sharp snort. Even my mother Karen was smiling. I just stood there staring at the mess on the floor, that $75 pie I'd carried for 10 hours. "Oh, Taylor," Karen said, her voice light and amused, as she handed Mason a paper towel. "Don't look so sensitive. It's just a silly dessert." And that was the moment, the click, the final piece sliding into place. I realized why they could laugh. It's what I call the trap of normalizing cruelty. In toxic families like mine, there's always a scapegoat and there's always a golden child. The entire family system is built on this imbalance. To keep the golden child Sierra feeling special, the scapegoat me has to be kept in their place. The laughter wasn't just about a pie. It was a tool of control. It was a way to remind me that my efforts are worthless. My feelings are an overreaction. My contributions are ultimately disposable. They weren't just laughing at a spilled dessert. They were laughing at me. They were laughing at the fact that I had bothered to try at all. And in that moment, watching my mother dismiss my feelings as too sensitive, I finally understood. They weren't going to change. They didn't want to change. They needed me to be the failure so they could feel like winners. I didn't say a word. I just watched my nephew try to wipe apple pie filling off his shoe with a smirk, and I knew I was done. I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating so hard it was rattling against the nightstand. It wasn't one buzz. It was an explosion, a relentless stream of notifications. I looked at the clock. 6:03 a.m. The mortgage payment was officially late. I picked up the phone. 22 missed calls, 47 texts, all from Karen, Mark, and Sierra. The first text from my mother was pure panic. The bank just called. The mortgage payment was declined. Fix this immediately. This is not a joke. The second one from Sierra was even less self-aware. My car payment bounced. What did you do? You're ruining my credit. I'm going to be stranded. You have to fix this now. I scrolled through the messages. Not a single one said, "Are you okay?" Not one said, "Why are you upset?" It was just a wall of demands. Fix it, fix it, fix it. They weren't angry that I was hurt. They were angry that the ATM was closed. I put the phone down, went to the kitchen, and started making coffee. The smell of the dark roast filled my apartment. The phone started buzzing again. This time, I let it go. A few minutes later, a notification from Facebook popped up. My mother had tagged me in a post. I clicked it. It's a terrible thing when you sacrifice everything for your children, only to have one of them turn around and be ungrateful. Some people forget who raised them. I read the post. I looked at the comments already flooding in from her friends. "Oh, Karen, I'm so sorry. You've always been such a good mother," sending prayers. She was already controlling the narrative, painting me as the villain. The phone rang again. "Sierra." I declined the call. It immediately went to a voicemail notification. I listened. It wasn't even a message, just screaming. "I cannot believe you are doing this to me. You are just jealous. You've always been jealous of my life, and now you're trying to sabotage me." I deleted the voicemail. The coffee was ready. I didn't reply to any of them. I didn't engage. The old Taylor would have been on the phone for hours, crying, defending herself, and eventually caving. This Taylor just got in the shower, put on a sharp blazer, and pulled her hair back into a professional bun. I wasn't going to call them. I was going to call my bank. I walked into the downtown branch at 9 a.m. sharp. I had scheduled an in-person meeting with the branch manager, a man named Mr. Wells. The contrast between my family's hysterical chaos and the quiet, professional calm of his office was almost dizzying. "Miss Wilson," he said, shaking my hand, "your email was brief. You mentioned a dispute regarding 2 co-signed loans. That's correct, I said, my voice perfectly level. I opened my briefcase and laid out the printed statements. I have been paying both my parents' mortgage and my sister's auto loan for the last 3 years. Last night, my family formally severed contact with me, and as a result, I am no longer willing to cover their debts. Mr. Wells looked at the papers. I see. Well, canceling the payments is your right, of course. It's more than that, I said. I was coerced into co-signing the auto loan under false pretenses. My sister has never made a single payment. I want to formally dispute my liability on that loan. I am not the primary owner. I have no access to the vehicle, and I believe I was a victim of financial coercion. I handed him my file, text messages from my mother begging me to sign, bank statements showing every single payment coming from my account. Mr. Wells was silent for a long time as he read. He didn't look at me with pity. He looked at me with professional validation. Miss Wilson, he said, closing the file, this is a very clear and well-documented case of financial exploitation. I am going to open an immediate investigation into the auto loan. Given your payment history and this evidence, we have a strong basis to have your name removed as co-signer. I felt a weight I hadn't even known I was carrying lift off my chest. Thank you, Mr. Wells. That's all I wanted to hear. I walked out of the bank into the bright Phoenix sunlight. My phone was still buzzing a frantic, angry bee in my pocket. But for the first time, I didn't feel it sting. I felt in control. I thought the meeting was over. I was gathering my files, a profound sense of relief washing over me, when Mr. Wells said, Miss Wilson, just one moment. I turned back. He was frowning at his computer screen, his brow furrowed. This mortgage account, the numbers are odd. He said more to himself than to me. What do you mean? The original loan amount was standard, he said, but your payments, you're not just paying the mortgage. You've been paying an additional $900 a month into a separate home equity line of credit. What I never authorized that. It was opened by the primary account holder, your father, 2 years ago. Mr. Wells said, his fingers clicking rapidly on the keyboard. He used your consistent payment history on the main mortgage as proof of income and stability to secure the credit line. It looks like he drew the full amount almost immediately. One single transaction. For what? My voice was flat. Mr. Wells was silent for a moment as he read the transaction notes. He looked up, his expression unreadable. According to this, the entire line of credit, $30,000, was used to purchase a 2023 Bass Tracker Pro fishing boat. A base boat. I didn't explode. I didn't cry. I just felt cold. All the texts from my dad about how times were tough, all my mother's tearful calls about losing the house, all the Thanksgivings I'd missed because I was working extra shifts to cover their mortgage. It was all a lie. They weren't surviving because of me. They were thriving off of me. My responsibility wasn't just a safety net. It was their luxury fund. I had been paying $1,800 a month thinking I was saving my childhood home, while my father was out on a lake somewhere fishing from a $30,000 boat I had paid for. Miss Wilson, Mr. Wells, said gently, "This changes things. Significantly." "How so?" "This isn't just a family dispute over a co-signed loan anymore," he said, his professional voice hardening. "Using your payment history to secure a loan in your name without your knowledge and for a purpose that you were not aware of, that is fraud. Plain and simple." I nodded slowly, the word fraud settling into my mind. It felt right. It was the correct legal term for what my family had always called love. I walked out of the bank with a new file. A fraud claim. I heard nothing from them for a full week. The silence was absolute. I assumed incorrectly that the bank had contacted them and they were too ashamed or too scared to respond. I was wrong. They weren't ashamed. They were organizing. It was a Tuesday night. I was at home reviewing a logistics report when the pounding started. It wasn't a knock. It was a frantic, desperate, angry pounding that rattled the hinges of my apartment door. My heart leaped into my throat. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. My blood went ice cold. It wasn't just one of them. It was all of them, Karen, Mark, and Sierra. They were standing in the hallway of my Phoenix apartment building, looking like they had driven all night. My mother's face was blotchy and red. My sister looked like she was in a panic, and my father looked furious. They had driven 10 hours from Denver. They were at my door, and they were not here to apologize. The pounding was frantic. "Taylor, open this door. We know you're in there." My mother's voice was shrill, unrecognizable. I stayed silent, looking through the peephole. My father, Mark, slammed his palm against the wood. "Don't you ignore us. The bank is calling every hour. They're taking the boat, Taylor. They're going to foreclose." "My car!" Sierra shrieked, her voice cracking. "They're going to repossess my SUV. I can't lose my car, Taylor. You have to fix this. You started this." I started this. They drove 10 hours, not to apologize, not to explain, but to stand in a hallway and demand that I turn the money back on. "Fix this, Taylor," my mother screamed. "You're our daughter. You can't let them take our house." I held my phone in my hand. My fingers were steady. I didn't call the bank. I didn't call them. I dialed 911. 911. "What's your emergency?" My voice was quiet, calm. "Hello, my name is Taylor Wilson. There are 3 people outside my apartment pounding on my door and screaming. They are my biological family, but I have asked them to leave me alone, and they are refusing to leave my property. I'm afraid they're going to break the door down." "Are you in immediate danger, ma'am?" "They are becoming increasingly unhinged," I said. "I am in my apartment. I just want them removed." "Officers are on their way." I hung up and went back to the peephole. The pounding stopped. I could hear them breathing heavily, muttering to each other. Then I heard the elevator ding and new voices. "Sir, ma'am, we need you to step away from the door." I watched as my father turned his face red with rage to see 2 police officers standing at the end of the hall. "Officer!" "Thank God," my mother said, rushing toward them. "You have to make her open the door. She's our daughter, and she's stolen from us." "Ma'am, what's going on here?" "She's ruining us," Sierra cried. "She co-signed for my car and then just stopped paying. She's trying to destroy my credit." The officer looked at her, then at my father, then back at my door. "Ma'am," he said to me, through the wood, "this is Officer Miller. Are you willing to come out and speak with us?" I took a breath. I unlatched the deadbolt and opened the door, but only halfway, keeping my body behind it. "Hello, officer. Thank you for coming. These individuals are trespassing. I have repeatedly asked them to stop contacting me. They've driven here from another state and are harassing me. I want them removed from my property." Trespassing. My father exploded. "This is our daughter. We're trying to have a family conversation." "Sir, has she asked you to leave?" She won't talk to us." "So you decided to pound on her door and scream at her?" the officer asked, his voice flat. "She owes us," Sierra yelled. Ma'am, this is a civil matter, the officer said, turning to Sierra. If she co-signed a loan and is no longer paying, your recourse is in civil court. It does not give you the right to harass her at her home. He looked back at me. Miss Wilson, do you feel threatened? I looked at my family. My mother, her face a mask of betrayal. My sister looking at me like I was a monster. My father vibrating with a rage he couldn't unleash. Yes, I said, I do. Then you all need to leave, the officer said to them. You are being formally trespassed from this property. If you return, you will be arrested. You're taking Hare's side, Karen shrieked. I'm taking the side of the law, ma'am. You are on private property, and the resident wants you gone. You have no legal right to be here. Now let's go. I watched silent as the two officers escorted them. My mother, my father, my sister down the hallway. My family, baffled, furious, and for the first time in their lives, powerless. My father looked back at me just before they turned the corner. His eyes weren't just angry, they were confused. He looked at me as if I was a stranger. He was right. I closed the door. I locked the deadbolt. I leaned against it, and I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 28 years. The fallout was swift. Sierra's SUV was repossessed a week later. The bank now, in a full fraud investigation, seized the base boat. And my parents' home, overloaded with debt they couldn't pay, went into foreclosure. I sat at my laptop and opened that old spreadsheet, the one where I'd meticulously tracked every family support payment. The total stared back at me. All that money, all that time. I highlighted the file. I thought about the pie on the floor. I thought about the heart icon. I hit delete. If you're still here, thank you for listening. This is a letter to everyone who has ever felt like they were on the fringes of their own family. To the responsible one, the scapegoat, the peacemaker. To the one who is expected to give everything but ask for nothing. I want you to know that you are not invisible, even if they make you feel that way. Your worth is not determined by how useful you are to them. You are allowed to stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to build a life that does not require their approval. It is not an act of cruelty to protect yourself. It is the first, most important act of self-love. You deserve to be the main character in your own story. Thank you for being here.